Hello everyone, my name is Dr. Cassidy and I am a prenatal and pediatric chiropractor in Minnesota and in Iowa. And this week I want to talk about getting comfortable with the scrutiny of the chiropractic profession. So if you are a chiropractor, you probably know what I'm talking about when I say scrutiny. There are a lot of opinions surrounding our profession as a whole. But before I dive into that and dive into getting comfortable with people maybe judging you, being really critical, not understanding those things, I think it'd be really helpful if I would share my story of how I decided to go into chiropractic. I think it'd be really helpful if you knew a little bit about my background before we totally dive into this. And essentially, like a lot of other chiropractors out there, I started my education thinking I was going to a Western medicine MD doctor route. That was the path that I definitely thought I was taking. That was the path, when I graduated high school. What were you going to be when you grow up? What are you going to study? Pre-med. And looking back, I think I got really comfortable just having an answer at that time. And, it is what it is. But when you get the same question over and over, eventually you just find an answer that you're comfortable with. And I think that's kind of what happened for me. But where I go with that, I was making the transition from my pre-med studies to chiropractic focused studies. And it was about the time that I was studying for the MCAT, which is when I really realized I did not want to go to medical school and do the MD route. But I was terrified about the scrutiny. That was my number one hurdle. It wasn't even the profession. It wasn't the confusion. It's not what they did. It wasn't how much they make. I was comfortable and excited about almost all of that, but being able to accept the scrutiny that I knew that I would inevitably get from others, friends, family, strangers, you name it. Everyone has an opinion. And I was really scared about that. I was nervous that people thought she's giving up, she didn't get into medical school, she's not smart enough, blah, blah, blah. Joke's on me because chiropractic school is super hard and you gotta be smart to finish that. So, of course, some of these fears were my own insecurities that ebbed and flowed their way out, but there was scrutiny, and honestly, there still is. And I've been through school now, out of school, practicing for a year, and the scrutiny is still around every corner. But I'm finally to a point where I can make peace with most of it. When I look back on the past 9 years or so and think about how I was able to get comfortable with people's negative opinions or negative comments, the scrutiny. And the number one thing is I never get defensive. Or I never try to. Of course, it may come out sometimes, but I really, really try not to be defensive. And this kind of goes for any conversation I'm having because it typically leads you nowhere when you start to defend or, it becomes when we're talking about defending and attacking, it's a fight. And it's not going to lead you anywhere. If you get defensive, you're probably not going to change anyone's mind. So, number one rule, do not get defensive. And here's where I go with this. Typically, when I get approached or I hear negative comments about chiropractic as a whole, And that's what it is. It's always as a whole. It's never just one doctor. It's never just one technique. Well, no, never really just one technique. It's usually chiropractic as a whole they have an issue with. And two instances, they either, one, know I'm a chiropractor, or they two do not. And of course, you can imagine that the comments are just a little bit gentler on the one end. But I'm always forthcoming. If I hear a comment, they don't know I'm a chiropractor, I am very forthright. Well, I'm a chiropractor. And I simply start asking them questions. Why? What happened? Did you have a bad experience? Did you get set up with a poor care plan? Have you been to a chiropractor? That's my favorite question, because you would not believe the opinions people have, and they've never seen a chiropractor. They've never witnessed it or experienced it firsthand, but their opinions are very big and real. So starting off with questions like that to truly understand where this person is coming from. So we're not going to get defensive, but we're going to ask this person questions, and then we're going to really listen to their answers. We're going to really listen and try to understand where their opinion is coming from. Knowing how they were, how they ended up here at this conclusion. Usually it's two things. Usually it's one, they have good reason to have scrutiny about our profession, or two, they don't. And then I am very comfortable taking an inhale, exhale, and being like, you know what? If they don't want to understand, that's all right with me. Maybe one day they will, and they'll reach out to me with questions. But you're not going to force anyone into a belief system or change someone's mind in a single conversation if they don't want to go there. But if they are willing to listen and engage with you, have an open dialogue about chiropractic care, then I really encourage you to acknowledge that our profession hasn't done a great job with educating the public, with honestly evenly educating chiropractors. There isn't very many chiropractic schools in the US, and yet there is a pretty big divide in what we are taught from school to school. And then even more so, the difference once you start getting into specialty care and certifications and things like that. So to acknowledge, that's not something you can fix, but you can acknowledge, hey, my profession hasn't done a really great job about sharing what it is that we actually do. Every chiropractor is different. And like every profession, you will have bad chiropractors, just like you have bad plumbers. And you're going to have great chiropractors and exceptional chiropractors, just like you have exceptional plumbers, exceptional hairstylists, and then absolute trash hairstylists. Same thing goes, we're not all great at our job. The second thing that is really important is to not give them a bunch of BS to make them happy. Don't play into their ego. If they truly just don't like our profession, that's okay. You're going to find people like that, and that is okay. You could be the best chiropractor in the world, and there's still going to be people out there that scrutinize our profession. But don't feed them a pile full of BS. Tell them the truth and answer their questions really honestly. If you don't know the answer, admit it. It's only happened to me a handful of times, not a bad thing, because most people in the general public are going to be asking you questions that you know the answers to. But sometimes you don't. And the best thing that you can do is tell them, hey, honestly, I'm not really sure, but I'll look into it and I'll get back to you. And then go look into it and get back to them. they will get more respect from you and from you as a chiropractor and a healthcare provider if you are honest with them and then give them their answer that is honest when you know it. Those are some tips for when you are confronted with scrutiny in our profession. But ultimately, what really helps me become comfortable with the scrutiny of chiropractic care is remembering why I started, remembering why I chose this profession, remembering where my passion lies. And it always leads me back to a space of relief because I know I'm doing what I'm meant to be doing. I love what I do. I see the results every day, just like you do. I hear the results every day from the patients I get to see and the patients that are willing to come see me. And it's not going to be for everyone. Acknowledge that. Remember your why. Don't get defensive with people. Don't feed people a bunch of BS. And be comfortable with your own goals and knowing your own worth. I feel like I might have gotten a little winded there. Thanks for hanging in there with me. I hope this video was really helpful and gave you at least one snippet or tool that you can use when you feel the scrutiny of being a chiropractor. If you liked what you've seen or you want more business tips as a chiropractor, go subscribe to our channel. We have an entire playlist dedicated for chiropractors and their business questions.